and welcome to Classical Schmassical, the anti-classical classical music podcast. Tune in on occasional Saturdays as we discuss, deconstruct, and dissect what it means to be a musician in today's world. I am one of your hosts, Alexa. I use any pronouns, and for the first time ever, I am joined by my co-host, Murphy Sievertson.
Hi, everybody. It's so good to be here. I'm Murphy. I use they, them pronouns. And our guest this week is Adrian Gordon. Adrian Gordon is an internationally performed composer and seasoned music educator and currently serves as the director of orchestras at Providence Day School in Charlotte, North Carolina. In addition to teaching, Adrian is the founder of Leap Year Music Publishing, which publishes string music for elementary, middle, and high school ensembles. His compositions appear on the Florida, Texas, Maryland, and Georgia Orchestra Association music performance assessment lists. He's also the author of a new book, Note to Self, a music director's guide for transitioning to a new school and building a thriving music program, which addresses a gap he noticed in his own education regarding transitioning between teaching jobs. Thank you so much for joining us, Adrian.
Wow, thank you all so much for having me. I'm honored to be here with you all and discuss the book and all things classical schmassical.
Yeah, awesome. So I know we've both read your book, and we're just talking about how much we really loved it. It's so practical, and I also felt like it read very friendly and super human, which is like not a thing that you get in a lot of classical music or even just music books. They can tend to be very jargony, and not very accessible to the outsider, which I thought that your book did a really great job at balancing. I'm wondering if you can talk more just about your motivations for writing the book. What was the process like from idea, I have this thing that I want to write, and to publication?
Yeah, well, before the show, we were talking a lot about graduate school and FIU. It's where I did my graduate study. But when I was doing my graduate studies, I always found it difficult because the stuff we were talking about, writing about was so inaccessible. I felt like it, like you said, there's a lot of jargon in it. And I never felt like I could truly connect, and I never felt like it was practical. And I always thought, man, somebody should take the time and write something that's really going to speak to teachers and add value to the profession. But anyway, you fast forward a couple years, and I had gone through several different transitions from general music to assistant band director to choir director and then to orchestra director. And I just saw a lot of overlap in all those positions, with particularly with relationship building with students. And it almost had nothing to do with the musical element, so there was a lot of that I noticed. So I ended up, was it in the fall of 2019, starting the book because I had just gone through a transition to a new school, and I was having a hard time. I'd been through several different transitions, like I had said before, but this one was particularly different and particularly difficult. So I said, "Why is this hard? What's going on?" So I ended up journaling and talking and discussing a lot of my ideas and experiences with friends and colleagues and my best friend. Um, and I, once I started to look at the broader picture, I was like, wow, this is something like a book, something that would add value and be of value to the profession. So I ended up starting the writing process in, like I said, the fall of 2019, and it was a slow process, and it took me up until 2022 to finish it. And I don't think I could have finished it without going through all the transitions. It was almost necessary for me to do that. And then once I finish it, I use it myself now because I am in the midst of a new transition. So I look to that book and I try and pull things from it. And like you said, it's a practical read. And the idea behind it was that a teacher, whether you're a new teacher, a pre-service teacher, or you've been in the field for a while, you could just pick it up and, on the weekend, take it home. Monday morning, you can come back with at least 3, 4, 5 ideas to help you in your own practice. So that was the idea behind the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really interested in how many different hats you're wearing.
Yeah.
A composer, choir director, band director, orchestra director, general music teacher. Yeah,
Yeah.
how do you navigate all of those things and, you know, doing the self-care thing, and also how do you feel like they inform each other?
Well, they didn't happen all at the same exact time.
Right, of
Mhm.
They were
course.
sequential. Some of them did
Hmm.
overlap. Like I did have my general music and my choir position that overlapped, and I
Mhm.
had my general music and my assistant band director position, which kind of overlapped. So they were in different phases, but they were all important in my own development. And what I noticed was, I think our particular field is important and different in that we see these students for such a long time, whereas regularly an academic teacher sees them maybe a year or maybe a semester, whatever the case may
Yeah.
be. And we see them grow and develop from, I don't know, elementary school sometimes to middle school, or middle school all the way to high school, or both. In my case right now, I'm seeing them through from fifth grade all the way to senior year. So there's
Wow.
a different element to what we're doing, and I noticed that you really have to be thoughtful about building relationships with students, and it doesn't really speak to the musical side of things so much, and we don't really talk about those things in music school. Building culture and
Mm.
expressing your vision, and working with administration and parents, and those things aren't really talked about. And that's the idea behind the book, to give my own experience and hopefully help others. And like I said, read it over the weekend and you walk away with one, two, three, four, five ideas.
Hmm.
Yeah, I know like with in my middle and high school band, I thought it was the coolest thing because our middle and junior high band teacher and our high school band teacher were husband and wife, and getting to like grow up with that
Wow.
family really like made that
Oh
community a
yeah.
part of it, kind of built in because you're moving
Mhm.
from Mrs. Perulicar to Mr. Perulicar. It was the best.
Right.
Um
Yeah, it's a very sweet experience.
yeah, and so I really love that like attention to community that you really brought.
Mhm. Mm.
And that kind of leads to one of the other like curiosities that I was have which that I had, which was like outside of obviously subject matter, and you've mentioned community, what makes like a music teacher different than like your biology teacher or your STEM teacher or whatever other subjects? Because I think we kind of all feel the difference, but yeah, quantifying it is
Right.
interesting.
Well, yeah, it's hard to quantify, but there is a collaborative element which other teachers don't have to experience. So, for example, if you mess up on a math test, it only affects you.
Mm.
If I mess up in my ensemble, I am now accountable to my teacher, to my colleagues in the ensemble, to myself. It's a ripple effect. So we're all in this together. We're all accountable to each other, and that's what makes our field so unique,
Mm.
and so special, that we all rely on each other, and we build that social fabric from the time that we start all the way through, whether like you said, from middle school to high school or elementary to high school, whatever the case may be. But we build that all the way through, and like you said, it's kind of built in, and it makes it so different than just your regular academic class. um, yeah, that's the biggest thing that I've seen, and why it's so important to focus on those community building elements.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that you talk about community building because it's something that I don't think a lot of musicians are particularly phenomenal at. And I think that this is
Mhm.
something, I know that Alexa and I are both composers, and in the compositional community, this is always a problem because I think
Yeah.
composers are such introverts.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm,
and yeah, I'm interested. I would love to hear you talk about community building until the cows can come home. But I'm interested in
yeah.
also like how do you build community both within the classroom and then outside the classroom? I
Mm.
read a lot about or I read your sections on you know, I was fascinated by the sections where you were talking about building rapport with your athletic department and, you know, talking to your
Hmm.
maintenance people, because I was
Yeah.
like, that's such a good tip. Um, So I
Hmm.
think that
Yeah.
yeah, I guess I would love to hear you speak on developing both community inside the classroom and then a community outside the classroom within the larger academic sphere.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I'm doing right now, and it's some of these things are either free or very inexpensive.
Mhm.
So, for example, right now, when I start my classes, we always start off with a joke, you know. So we'll do the cringiest. I do the cringiest dad joke that I can find, and I make sure the cringier the better.
I
And it
love
gets
it.
the kids laughing. It's just a way to kind of disarm and break the ice and just kind of slip into making some good music together. We laugh together, then we jump into music, like I said, and that's free. You can just tell a good joke, and it could be a music joke. Um, or the other things that I'm doing right now are Jolly Rancher Friday, which the kids always look forward to. So after a hard fought week, we've put all our blood, sweat, and tears into making great music all week, and their reward is, hey, you know what? On Friday, let's do something different. It's everybody gets a Jolly Rancher. It doesn't have to be every day. And I'm not saying you're bribing the kids all day, every day, but just something nice. It's really cheap, really inexpensive, but that's another thing that as a community we look forward to. It's our
Mm.
thing. That's the orchestra thing, or that's the band thing, or that's the choral thing that we do. um, it's just something nice, I think, for the students. And then outside of the classroom, just recently, it was about 2 maybe 3 weeks ago, we did a team building event. Here we did movie night. So what I tend to do is I'll pick a movie, I'll let them choose, and we pick a movie, of course, has to be family friendly, and we'll get pizzas from everywhere. We'll get pizzas from all the different chains and all the different local spots, and we try all these pizzas, and it's just a lot of fun. It's just something that we do after school. There's no pressure. Oh, we got to get X, Y, and Z done. We got to make sure we tune up. We play. No, none of that. It's just for us to come together, break some bread, and relax, watch a movie, enjoy each other's company, and then we vote on what's the best pizza. So these things are
Yeah.
are not that expensive. They're not, nothing crazy. It's just pretty straightforward, but it really adds to the value of the ensemble and developing that culture of togetherness, so that you can have, yeah, I don't know, longevity
Mhm.
within your program.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I know I love that you brought up the point of like being together outside and without this sense of pressure of doing whatever it is that you do. I think that even in my experience in like graduate school, we didn't have a lot of that at all. And I think that that was really detrimental to the sense of community. But like as soon as we started a group chat that was just silly and memes, and like I feel so much closer to the people now in my program, just
Right.
having that outlet of something that we're doing that isn't composing or isn't playing or isn't being in rehearsals or in class or what have you. I love that.
Yeah, it's just that human element, that I think is
Yeah.
necessary if you want to play well. So yeah, it takes everybody a long way when that element is there, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely. I think relating to that human element, one of my favorite parts of the book was the fourth chapter where you talk about taking care of yourself physically, mentally, musically, and emotionally. And I think that in my personal experience, musicians and teachers are both kind of notoriously putting other people before themselves. And I know that I tend to do that all the time. And I really loved the way that you were advocating for self-care as an integral part of your practice and your teaching. I'm wondering if you can talk
Mhm.
more about your personal journey with career and health, or how the two are related, or what that chapter really meant to you.
Yeah, that would it kind of hit close to home. And I started off by saying that I think of it kind of like when you're on an airplane, and the flight attendant comes on and says, the oxygen mask may drop, but make sure you put your own on before you help anybody else.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing in our practice. You can't really be useful to anybody else unless you're taking care of yourself first. and we, as educators, we have these big hearts. We care. We care about everybody else. We care about the kids. We want to do right by the kids, but we can't be what we want to be for them unless you've taken care of yourself. So if that means, in the book, I talk about a couple things. For one, musically, I do think it's important to maintain your musical health. I have a lot of friends and colleagues who will say, I don't play anymore. I conduct, and to each his or her own, but I feel that it's so important to play and and stay connected to who you are as a musician. And it doesn't have to be crazy. We always tell kids, you don't have to practice for 2 3 hours a day, just a little bit, but we sometimes neglect to take that advice for ourselves. So I just advocate for, if you can practice 3 minutes, do it. 5 minutes, do it. 10 minutes, do it. Whatever you can do. And it doesn't have to be all the time, but just something to keep you connected to your instrument and keep you kind of anchored in the midst of all the transitions that are happening, because you're learning a lot. You're learning a new culture, new names, new schedules. Everything is coming at you in the midst of your transition. So the one constant is that you're a musician, and you love music, and you want to pass that love and that passion along to your students. So that's one of the things that I talk about, as being your anchor during your transition. And then I also talk about your physical well-being, making sure that you're getting enough sleep. That's really, really important. And a lot of the times in the midst of transitions or just a busy work schedule, we let our minds wander, and we kind of spin those wheels and stay up, and we don't get the sleep that we need to be a functional human being the next day for our students. you know so I in the book I talk about writing stuff down, making sure you're writing it down, and it seems so simple, but I neglected to do that. And then I became really passionate about using my Google Tasks. So I have my Google Tasks app, and I write everything down, and it kind of helps me stay on track. um, because there were times where I wasn't getting enough sleep, and it started to really affect me. I was
Mm.
having sleep issues, and I was having really bad stomach issues, digestion issues,
Hmm.
and I could feel it. I knew my body was just like, you got to stop. you, you know,
Yeah.
you got to,
Yeah.
you got to slow down. So the self care really is important, and then also eating well if
Hmm.
you can. I advocate for bringing healthy snacks to work, and taking the time to just fuel your body the way it needs to be fueled. And I liken it to the fact that when your car is out of gas, you will go to the gas station and refill it. You'll do that because you don't want to be stranded. But for
Hmm.
some reason, our own well-being and our own health, we don't do the same. So it's really
Hmm.
important that that's a part of your transition in your daily walk. Just making sure you're taking care of yourself, taking care of your body.
Hmm.
And then I also advocate for family time. Being
Yeah.
protective of that. Whatever your family looks like, you just got to be protective of it, because you are valuable and you are important to your family members, and they need you. And whether it's your smile, your laugh, your jokes, whatever it is that you have that's so precious to your family members, they need that and they deserve that from you. So we've just got to be protective of that time. And when you're not protective of it, you kind of behaviorally trained your community that I don't have personal time that's important to my family. I'm always on call and I'm always available, and it's not possible. It's not
Hmm.
sustainable. You have to really, um, you got to take care of yourself, and you got to take care of your family, and
Hmm.
um, you know, give everybody that hard line of, no, this is where my work day ends. So,
Yeah.
Hmm.
so those are a
Yeah.
couple of the things that I talk about in the book with regards to self care.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really curious about where you see composition fitting into that as well. You're this
Hmm.
incredibly acclaimed composer. Um and I have lots of questions about it, and I think
Oh,
that
sure, yeah.
yeah, I'm interested in where you see it sort of fitting into your educational praxis, like, or practice. Like, do you see composition is something where you can relate to your students in a more sort of deep way? Do you see it
Mhm.
as just something musical that you can do on the side to keep those chops up? Yeah, I would love to hear what type of role it plays in your career and in your practice as a musician and an educator.
Yeah, I think it's all a part of me.
Mm.
It's something that I can't let go of, and honestly, it kind of informs my teaching style. I was telling somebody the other day that I'm a better composer because I am a teacher. I'm a
Mm.
better teacher because I'm a conductor. And I'm a better conductor because I compose. And it's a circular argument. And I think each one of those roles informs each other. And I couldn't do one without the other. Um, and I think that's what's made me realize what needs to happen at each level, and how to approach it, and how to, I don't know, how to give the best sequence of events for a composition, or whatever that composition needs to be appropriate and accessible for that age. I think
Mm.
because I've been teaching, I'm able to understand that and plug that in. So
Yeah.
I think that's kind of, it's not like that for everybody. Some people are just naturally gifted and they know exactly how to do that, but I'm not one of those people. um
Neither am
I do
I.
think,
No, me either.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so I think the teaching, as def in the conducting, has definitely helped and informed a lot of that.
Yeah.
And then I just do it whenever I can on the side. It's just a part of me, and what I've learned with composition is, you got to have grit and you got to keep it going. And one of the big things to keep on moving forward with your compositional career is to keep showing up.
Mhm.
That means, and it's just like practicing your instrument. It doesn't mean that you have to compose for an hour or 2 hours every day, but just a little bit every day. Even if that means that you're singing, um, voice memos into your phone.
Yeah.
That's
Hmm.
a part of your compositional process. Whatever you've got to do to keep your mind growing and going forward in composition,
Mhm.
um, that's what I do.
Hmm.
So.
Yeah. You mentioned that teaching has really informed like the sense of like pedagogical music that you
Mhm.
have then written. Uh, I'm curious if there was anything that was super surprising to you as you kind of grew in your ability to compose at sort of this like pedagogically appropriate level, or conversely, if there's like common mistakes that you see as an educator, conducting or directing other people's music, where you're like, everybody, like, what's going on here? Like these sorts of
Mm.
common mistakes is mistake is a strong word, but common areas of frustration.
Yeah, yeah. There are definitely some pieces that I'm like, oh man, this is not written well for this age group.
Mhm.
You always find that, and I'm sure that's the same thing in literature. Oh, this book was not written well for this age group, and there's a whole multitude of reasons why. um what I like to do in my compositional process a lot of times is I will kind of work backwards. So
Mhm.
the first thing that I think of is, whatever I'm composing, it had whoever's listening to it has to walk away being able to whistle that tune. Can you whistle that melodic
Love.
line?
Yeah.
you
Hmm.
know if they can do that, then you're on to something. And if, I guess another thing is, if it's stuck in your head too, that melody. I'm all
Yeah.
about good melody. A good melodic line always goes a long way, especially for the young students. But that's the first thing. And then what you can do is start paring down. So a lot of times, what I've seen, particularly coming from Florida, what I did is they have a sight reading rubric for their MPA evaluations.
Oh yeah.
You
I'm very
know,
familiar.
yeah. So you can kind of reverse engineer that to fit your own compositions, and make sure it's appropriate if you're
Cool.
really wanting to stay on point.
Yeah.
That's just little hack that I kind of figured out. Making sure that you're staying on point pedagogically. You're not, jumping the gun and adding, shifts in like fourth and fifth position to a grade
Right.
two
Mm-hmm.
group. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
got to be appropriate and it's got to be accessible. So you start with that great melody, and then from there you can start to take those rubrics and start paring everything down until it fits exactly into that grade level.
Mm.
And you might have to get creative and ask teachers and other players, hey, does this work, does this make sense? But to me, that's the best way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw an online argument once that was like, you can't put this time signature in a grade two. I think it was a 6/8. You can't put 6/8 in a grade two piece. And it was like hundreds and hundreds of comments long, going back and forth between that's not part of this grade level, that's not part of this. And if we can't, engage the kids, if we can't challenge them, what, I there were people arguing like, I think they can handle it. Like, let's see what
Mm.
these kids can
Mm-hmm.
do. What are your thoughts on, because I didn't know enough to even take a side in the argument. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on adding just those sort of like, maybe this is a little bit more challenging than would usually happen in this grade level, but let's see what can happen. Do you have any?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would
Do we need to get
say,
smaller increments like 2.25,
Right.
2.1,
yeah, they
Yeah.
2.12?
they do have that. They'll have the
Oh
grade
wow.
Yeah.
2.5, grade
Yeah.
2.5, 3.5, so on
Yeah.
and so forth. But I think it's a balancing act. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, if you wanted to put something that's a grade two in 6/8 time, you'd have to make sure that your note values are very, very static. You're only
Mm-hmm.
using quarter notes and eighth notes
Yeah.
or dotted quarter notes and so on. So you're keeping the rhythmic pretty solid, pretty simple. And you're throwing out any use of accidentals. So it's just a toss up. Like what's more
Gotcha.
valuable to you? Do you want them to have the experience of playing in 6/8?
Yeah.
And that's just a judgment call from
Sure.
the composer. But your experience in education a lot of times will inform that. So you'll be able to
Cool.
know and pick up, yeah, they can play it in 6/8. And if we're only going to focus on maybe a G scale, and
Mm-hmm.
we're only going to play with eighth notes, and we're only going to play with dotted quarter notes and quarter notes, um, and it's going to be in a slow tempo, and it's going to be a very short piece. Hey, we need that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now the problem is, and this is the big issue, is the gatekeeping that you see with publishing houses.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Is it marketable?
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole other issue. And I think one of my one of my things that I'm thinking right now, my new mantra is permission granted. So is it valuable? Is it marketable? If you think it is, then it is,
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
you know, and you can't let a publishing house say otherwise. You figure out a way to be the change that you want to see, and that's how I came up with my publishing company. I received many, many, many no's from the gatekeepers. Oh, sorry, you're hearing it. They're excited
Yay.
for
Yay
composition.
knows.
Woo!
Oh, sorry, that'll pass. They're just warming up.
All
All
good,
good.
all good.
But in the beginning of my compositional journey, I was writing music and I was having it played by my orchestras without them knowing it was me. So they would
Mm.
they would play it and they would enjoy it, but I would send it out to the publishing houses, and I kept getting this resounding no's. No, 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 no. And I'm thinking, what is going on here? How is it that students who are the primary audience are enjoying this, but these executives in the publishing houses, they're not in the classroom. They're not seeing what I'm seeing. They're not taking account for what's happening in the classroom. They don't see the value in this.
Mm-hmm.
What's the disconnect? And I just got
Mm-hmm.
tired of waiting. And I've said permission granted, and I became the change that I wanted to see. And I said, and not in a conceited way. I felt like my music was special, and I felt like it had a lot to offer, and it was cool, just like a leap year. And I was like, oh, well, how about leap year music publishing? And there was the title for my company, Leap Year Music. And since then, it's been 13, almost 14 years now that I've been composing my own music and doing it my way. And I'm not saying it's easy, but I will say it's worth it.
Mm.
And I have enjoyed the ride and the process of putting music out there and making contacts and understanding that it's valuable because I know exactly what's going on in the classroom.
Hmm.
Mm. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
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 Like saying that you know more than
Exactly.
Yeah.
publishing house
Yeah.
executives. Not to put words in your mouth, because maybe we want to keep those connections, and maybe I want to keep those connections. Any, any
Yeah.
publishers want to publish my
Yeah.
music too. So I
Yeah.
mean, it's interesting. I'm seeing a lot of young composers just being like, I'm not making it work. I'm gonna just start self-publishing. Um,
Mhm.
like, do you, I think that there's a real like distinct advantage and a sort of a lovely even or more even playing field
Hmm.
for composers who are starting to really engage in the publishing industry on their own terms. um
Mhm.
and I'm interested to hear what you have to say about like what it is to be a publisher and what it looks
Yeah.
like to publish your music and to publish the music of the other composers that you have
Mhm.
within Leap Year Publishing.
Well, I say it's hard. It's hard. You're up against these big guys that have millions of dollars, and
Right.
Yeah.
newsflash, I don't. um, but it's worth it, and I will say, and this is making it sound bad, but it's a lonely process.
Mm.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
For
it's a
sure.
lonely process that you're not. It's not like the sexy side of things. Oh, I'm in the business side and I'm publishing and nobody cares. Nobody
Yeah.
sees it. It's very lonely, but it is also one of the most rewarding things to
Mm.
see when people are playing what was once inside of your head,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
it's coming to fruition.
Totally.
Definitely.
So it's really this weird contrast between self-torture and passion
Oh
for
yeah.
composition.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we both understand that quite a bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but totally worth it.
Absolutely.
It's totally worth it.
Oh
Yeah.
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 100%.
Yeah. But the business side of things is can really be a slog, and it feels like a lot of responsibility for, I mean, it feels like a lot of responsibility for just a composer to know all of the ins and outs. But then you're also a teacher.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
that in of itself is like the most demanding job in the world.
Hmm.
So to be balancing all of these things, and
Mm.
how do you take time for yourself, and like how do you do all of the things that you do, and like I mean the other part of it is that you're obviously doing them very well.
Well, thank you.
You're succeeding. Yeah, I think that it's pretty clear that like even by reading your book, it's pretty
Yeah.
clear that you have a very strong grasp of not only your values but what you would like your career to look like, and
Definitely.
how you keep
Mm.
those things balanced. And it just, I mean,
Yeah,
it seems impossible.
it's not impossible, but I will
Yeah.
say it is difficult. You have
Hmm.
to. It's a very unforgiving profession, as I say,
Hmm.
and you got to be willing to take the hits. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
if you're not willing to do that, then it's not going to be for you.
Hmm.
But one of the things that I do is I just schedule. I have my calendar, and if it's not on my calendar, it's a high probability I'm going to miss it.
Yeah.
You
It's not on
know,
the calendar, it doesn't exist.
it doesn't
Hmm.
exist. So that's the one thing that I think is helpful. But I think also it's important. There's a big gap in our college education with the portfolio career. I think we have this one track mind that everyone's just going to either be a performance major
Hmm.
or everyone's going to
Yeah.
be
Oh
a,
yeah.
I don't know, music business or just a jazz, straight ahead jazz person, when in reality, you've got to be a little bit of everything if you
Yeah.
want to
Hmm.
make it in our modern day music world. And I don't think they also take into account the effect of social media and how that impacts what
Hmm.
we
Oh,
do as musicians.
Yeah.
Um, I think all of it's important. And I think we have to walk out of school understanding that even if you are a teacher, you are a business.
Hmm.
Even educators,
yeah.
we're business people,
Hmm.
because how many educators end up opening up a studio?
Yeah.
Just about every, or work for a studio, or you know
Yeah. Or gig.
or gig, yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
so I think part of music education at the college level is missing that
Hmm.
element where we're understanding how to develop a portfolio career
Yeah.
and balance everything, and kind of know how to do it well. I've just been kind of shooting in the dark and
Yeah. I remember
figuring.
in freshman year of my undergrad, I had a teacher, I think it was probably like our first or second composition seminar, who said there's only two areas of composition that you can go into where composition will be the only thing that you're going to do. And that's film composing and getting really good at writing middle and high school band. But that's like not even true anymore because film composers and pedagogical composers are still doing everything. And I
Yeah.
Yeah.
I on one hand I love it. I wish it wasn't maybe a necessity, but I think that, I think leaning into it is really going to have some awesome impacts to the field.
Yeah, there's quite a bit out there. There's a lot of video game music and
Yeah.
TV, and like, what do you call these things? These e cards. That's a big thing too, where there's
Never heard of
What?
e-cards. What's it?
yeah,
What?
so like cards you get on your birthday that may have music attached to them.
Oh, got
Okay.
it. Okay.
You
I
know,
thought the kids
Gotcha.
were talking about something completely new and
oh
we,
no, no, no. Yeah.
the mid
Yeah,
20s
yeah.
composers who don't have much contact with kids right now are just way out of the loop.
No, no.
We need to get back
But
into teaching.
Yeah.
no, no,
Yeah.
you're good. You're good. But there's so many different avenues, and then there's the church music, there's
Hmm.
arranging, there's just so much to do. And I think the modern musician can't rely on just one thing. I guess you could. um, I don't know if I'm that good to do that.
I
But
don't
I
feel like
I think you should be well versed. I should put it, in many different things,
it. Hmm.
because for example, everybody who's a musician at some point will be in a studio. You're gonna record something. But I think, again, colleges tend to neglect that element, which is so important to musicians. We
Definitely.
all record. Um, so little things like that, um, those are really important elements that I think add to your overall portfolio career,
Yeah.
education,
Totally.
composing, and now I'm delving more into the world of conducting, and
Yeah.
Hmm.
so yeah, it all comes together.
Yeah, definitely. Um, I'm wondering, would your so this book I think is largely a book of excellent advice. But if you were gonna distill like it down to one conversation with your past self or one conversation with a current music education student, um, is there any difference in the advice that you would give? And yeah.
Mm, yeah, I would look back and I would say, don't be fooled by the fact that you have graduated. That doesn't
Mm,
mean that your education has stopped,
Hmm.
yeah.
which I don't think I realized that when I finished my schooling in my undergrad. I figured, oh, I'm done.
And then you went to get a master's.
Boy, there was a couple of years in between there.
Sure.
Oh, totally. Totally.
But even with the masters, even with
Yeah.
a doctoral program, there is so much outside of academia to learn. And that's
Mm,
the idea
Hmm.
behind this book, because in all those pedagogical classes, none of them are going to talk about the things that I think I'm talking about in Note to Self. And I haven't seen any resources for teachers out there like that,
Yeah.
which is what, part of the reason why I wanted to write the book. And, I talk about in the dedication, um,
Mhm.
I dedicate the book to music educators who tirelessly strive to leave the profession in better shape than they found it. And I think that should
Mm,
be our goal. And that's
yeah.
my aim with the book, to leave the profession in better shape than I found it. And I saw a need for myself when I figured, if there's a need for me, I'm sure there's a need for other people out there for a
Mhm.
resource
Yeah.
like this. And that's the idea, so that people can learn from it and hopefully pass it along, pay it forward, and we all just keep on improving the field.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
So cool.
Mhm.
Um, well, I want to be really respectful of your time, especially as hearing the warm-ups going on behind you. But is there anything else that you would like to share or promote or talk about?
Um, well, I'm really excited. This week I'm going to be in Georgia conducting the Georgia Middle School All States. So I'm really
Amazing.
excited about that. And I'm super excited that we're playing my new composition. We're playing my new piece called A Tender Moment in Time, which is going to be released through Alfred Music, I believe in May. But I'm really excited about that
Amazing.
piece because it
Yeah.
kind of tells a story of my transition from Miami,
Mhm.
Florida, all the way to Charlotte, North Carolina. And you can kind of see
Yeah.
all the emotions that were going on in my mind and my heart through that transition in that
Yeah.
piece. So I'm
Oh,
really excited to
wonderful.
share that
That's
with my
amazing.
students for the
Mhm.
All-State group, and
Mhm.
looking
Yeah.
forward to that.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
That sounds
congrats.
incredible.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And last thing that I had for you, unless Murphy has anything else,
Mhm.
No, I'm all
um,
good.
I'm
Mhm.
wondering if you can share some of your favorite dad jokes from the starting of rehearsals, because we can all use more of those wonderful jokes in our lives.
Yeah, hold on. I'm gonna pull some up for
Yeah,
you.
please. Yeah, I can tell you my personal favorite. You might have already heard it while you're pulling those up. Do you know what you call a lawn ornament in the big city?
What is it?
It's a metronome.
Mhm.
Oh gosh. Oh, well, here's one
Ah.
for you. Um, I used to have a job at the helium factory, but I quit. I told my boss I will not be spoken to in that tone.
Ah, I
Incredible.
love that's really good.
Oh, the cringe. You got to embrace the
Oh
cringe.
yeah. I heard this quote that said, don't what was it? Don't stop cringing. Don't stop doing the things that you cringe. Kill the part of yourself that cringes.
Yes.
It's like, yeah, that's what I want to do.
Just waft it
Uh,
in.
yeah, exactly. Embrace it. Let's go.
Fitment. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Adrian, for joining us here at Classical Schmassical. If you at home enjoyed the show, there's definitely plenty more where it came from. So make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss any of our episodes. Definitely check out Adrian's book, Note to Self, A Music Director's Guide for Transitioning to a New School and Building a Thriving Music Program. It is wonderful. I cannot recommend it enough. And if you would like to continue this conversation, feel free to join the Discord that is linked in the description, or visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/classical schmassical, schmassical, SCHMASSICAL. And remember, as always, stay classy and questionably classical.